President-elect Donald Trump is reportedly making phone calls to senators, pressing them to support his pick for Attorney General. Axios spoke to two senators who said Trump called them about former Congressman Matt Gaetz, one of them being Republican Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. Meanwhile, the House Ethics Committee is set to meet tomorrow to discuss its report on the former congressman. The top Democrat on that panel, Congresswoman Susan Wild of Pennsylvania, said the report should be released to the Senate and to the public. An attorney for two women who say Gaetz paid them for sex several times sat down yesterday for an interview with NBC's Hallie Jackson. He detailed part of their testimony to Ethics Committee investigators about a party in Orlando back in 2017.
One of the first things that happened when she got the party, she testified to the House that within minutes of arriving, she was introduced to Matt Gaetz, and they went upstairs and had sexual intercourse on the bed, after which she went downstairs. At some point, she was walking outside to go to the pool area, and to the right, she witnessed Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend, who was 17 at the time.
Did your client believe that Gaetz at the time knew that her friend was underage?
Yeah, so the House was curious about that. She testified that her belief was that Representative Gaetz had no knowledge that she was under 18, that she was 17 years old at the time he was having sex with her. They did testify, both of them, that they consented to the activities. They were also asked whether or not they were victims, and then she broke down in tears, and she said it's a very complicated question.
Did your clients make any assessments in their testimony about Mr. Gaetz's fitness or judgment to serve in office?
They're very careful about what they might express publicly, but one did say, I do not think a man like him should have that much power.
Oh. Gaetz has long denied the allegations. The Justice Department also investigated Gaetz over sex trafficking allegations involving a 17-year-old girl. He has not been charged with any crime.
So this testimony, of course, happened, Willie, under oath, and sex with a 17-year-old woman paying two other women. I think the testimony was, he said, sex under oath in front of the Ethics Committee. And regardless of what the speaker said, people on the committee say the information needs to get out. John Cornyn and other senators are saying, we got to see all the information. It's too bad. I mean, I was in the House. I know what senators think of House members. Like, they're not going to listen to the Speaker of the House. They're going to want to get it out and get the information for the American people. But if I can just, for 1 minute, if everybody just give me a second here, and I appreciate it because I don't usually get a chance to talk on the show, but I'm going to do it this now. First of all, I want to just say, Meek and I went to an event last night, and it was wonderful. There are a lot of people that were sad. A lot of people came up to us hugging us, saying, tell us everything's going to be okay. Tell us we're so upset, we're so torn. And I said, It was
the Roar Forward Summit. Reimagine the second half of life. To talk about 50 over 50. It was so good.
It really was. And I said, listen, we don't know how we're going to get forward. We're stumbling forward right now, trying to figure it out. And Rev, you know, 1 Corinthians, the love chapter. For now, we see through a glass darkly, but later we will be able to see clearly.
He quoted it correctly.
There you go. And so we don't know right now. But I just throw this open to the table. I mean, what I said was, we're always concerned, obviously, and everybody that wins acts like this election is the last election ever. First of all, I want to just let everybody know Donald Trump did extremely well in Middle America. He did. But I also want you to know this. We're a 50-50 nation. About 1 out of 4 Americans voted for Donald Trump, a little bit more. About 1 out of 4 Americans voted for Kamala Harris, a little bit less. And in the swing states, Wisconsin, Donald Trump won by less than 1 percentage point. Michigan, he won by about a percentage point. Pennsylvania, he won by about 1.5 percentage points. This is a 50-50 nation. And I had a sign in my congressional office that said, if you want to predict the future, shape the future. So be sad, be upset, mourn, and then get to work. All of us, get to work. regardless of what side you're on or how you think we best get there. We're not going to always see eye to eye, but we can get there together. But Rev, there's a great story that I think David Marin has told about Bill Clinton. He was running for governor, I think it was in '80. He lost. Young man, he had already been governor. It was like supposed to be the end of his political career. The morning after the election, when he lost, his staff members were looking out the window as they were packing up the boxes. And there was Bill Clinton on the street, shaking hands. And one of them looked to the other and they said, poor guy, he doesn't even know the election's over. And the other staffer said, oh, you don't understand. The other election may be over, but the next election has just begun. And Clinton was shaking hands, kept shaking hands, and he got elected governor. Then in 2 years, 2 years after that, 2 years after that, 2 years after that, and became president of the United States. And I guess that's the message. We don't have the answer. None of us right now. We're trying to figure out exactly what hit last week. But one thing we know is there's a lot of work to be done.
And there's a lot of people that will be affected and impacted in the interim.
Exactly.
And I think that we can't miss the forest for the trees. When we have a new president, and that's who Donald Trump is, regardless of my views of him, we've got to figure out how we have people not suffer more than they can suffer if we're not dealing with that. That's why when there were those, and there were not as many as I thought, that said, why would you and Mika meet with Donald Trump? He's going to be the president. If you can meet with him, meet with him. That, to me, is no different than when people said to me, why would Kamala Harris go talk to Brett Baer? So on one side, she can talk to Brett Baer, but on the other side, he shouldn't come on Morning Joe. I don't think we've got an equal judgment here, because I think all sides need to be talking to all sides. Now, that's not my role. Donald Trump called me after he won the first time. I wouldn't meet with him because I felt that it would be a photo op and he promoted wrongly, even though we should be discussing issues, and we have talked on the phone since then. But I know he's a promoter. If he'd been born black, he'd have been Don King. That's what he does well. But I think that what we need to do is deal with the issues that's going to impact people. I would say, I hope in your conversations, we should ask Donald Trump. You talked about black men would be with you. Where's a black man being nominated by you for your cabinet? Has anyone noticed there's no black that has been nominated on his cabinet? That needs to be raised. Rather than who's talking, let's deal with what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I will say also, I just want to say thank you, first of all, to everybody who was so kind last night, but also thank you. Willie, yesterday I saw for the first time what a massive disconnect there was between social media and the real world, because we were flooded with phone calls from people all day, literally around the world. Very positive, very supportive, going, I understand what you did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But once in a while I would get a text or a call from someone and go, oh man, I hope you're doing okay. And I call him back and I go, well, Eddie Glaude was one of them. I go, Eddie, are you on Twitter? And he goes, I am. I go, okay, well, I'm not. So we've had a good day. Mika just had a wonderful event, and it's fantastic. We're going to do all of us are going to do the best we can do, and we're all working towards a better America.
Take it day by day.
Day by day. And again, you can predict the future by shaping the future. But the reason I wanted to talk about that 1/4 of Americans voted for Donald Trump, about 1/4 voted for Kamala Harris is there's another election in 2 years. Now, I don't care who wins and how big they win. We've seen time and again, and we talk about it. Americans go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with their picks. If Republicans, if Donald Trump, if Republican senators put in as an attorney general somebody that 3 women have testified, I believe, if I'm correct, he had sex with an underage woman at a drug-fueled party. And what I read in the Wall Street Journal was he paid 2 other women for sex. If that is something that Republican senators and Donald Trump are okay with, there will be consequences at the voting booth 2 years from now. And of course, we always say, oh, we won. Oh, we won. You know, oh, we can do whatever we want. Really? Because that's what I heard a lot of Democrats saying after Barack Obama won. And 2 years later, the Tea Party came roaring into town. So I will say it again. This and other of these picks, Republicans would be smart to advise and consent. And Donald Trump would be smart to back off of them in 2 or 3 of these cases, because there are elections 2 years from now and things just won't go well.
I mean, think about in the case of Matt Gaetz, we're parsing whether the young woman alleged to have had sex with Matt Gaetz was 17 or 18. This is a sitting member of the House of Representatives in 2017. He'd just been sworn in. So does character count or not? That's a question for Donald Trump. It's a question for Republicans. They've all long lectured about character, put qualification to the side. That's a part of his story as well. And you could go down the list and ask those questions, and we will ask those questions. But to Rev's point and your point, to underline what you guys were saying yesterday, I wasn't at Mar-a-Lago. I've never been to Mar-a-Lago. Never been invited. I guess I should be offended by that. But nothing changes for me, and I think for you guys either, from before Election Day, which is, you know how we have criticized Donald Trump. You know about his policies. You can see it in the people he's nominating. You'll see it in a minute when we talk about his plan for mass deportation. None of that changes for me. None of that changes for us in the way we will criticize that. He is the president of the United States. That's a fact of the matter. He won very narrowly. I would point out that just yesterday, as more votes came into California, he has slipped under a 50% majority nationally. All of those swing states, save for Arizona, within the margin of error. The polling actually was right in those states.
So when we were saying every day, this race is a tide?
It was.
It was tied.
It was. Right. He swept the battleground states. True. In that way, it was overwhelming. He
swept them, but within the margin of error, which, again, that's how you win elections these days. 2016 within the margin of error. 2020 within the margin of error. 2024 within the margin. We are a 50-50 nation. I guess the question is, again, side issue, when are we going to learn to work together?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm deeply skeptical. It might be an understatement that he's going to suddenly be this bipartisan figure in our country, given his history, given the nominations and the choices he's making right now. But we will cover him as we've been covering him.